Добре, доброго дня, дорогі колеги. So, Ayelet, while we are waiting for a few minutes, I will talk a bit in Ukrainian. You will have a translation, I think, from Ola, okay? Just a few minutes. Доброго вечора, колеги. І перш за все, хочу попросити всіх зайти на потрібну аудіодоріжку. Якщо би ви хотіли вибрати українську мову, будь ласка, перейдіть на своєму комп'ютері чи на ноутбуку, чи на телефоні на потрібну вам мову, вибравши внизу, в лівому, перепрошую, в правому куточку, клацнувши на глобус, і виберіть мову. So if we have English-speaking colleagues, I'm asking everyone to change the language you want to listen at English or Ukrainian. For that, you need to go down there on the globe, click on the globe or on the 3 dots and choose the language. If you have any problems with changing the language, please let me know. Write it down and I'll assist you. Дорогі колеги, якщо у вас будуть будь-які проблеми з переключенням мови, будь ласка, дайте нам знати. Тут є я і Наталя, і ми вам з радістю допоможемо. Просто напишіть в чаті. So I think we will start because we waited for 7 minutes. What do you think, Ayelet?
Yeah, it's all right. I think Avi is directing people from the other link. So I would wait a few more minutes.
Okay.
Just a little bit, and then we're going to start. Yeah.
Sure.
And maybe also I can start with an explanation while people are waiting, is that this Zoom session was offered about a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago, when there wasn't a war in the Ukraine. So when we were talking about families in crises, we had in mind different kind of crises, like the pandemic, and maybe how do you handle your family when things are getting a little rough. So different kind of crises, like God forbid, a car accident, or even situations in the US where you have school shootings and you have, a tornado or a big fire. But now we're dealing with a situation that we are having a war zone in Europe, and a lot of people from the Ukraine decided to join. That's why we thought it would be amazing to offer that in both languages. So what I'm going to try and do today is really accommodate everyone in the room and try to have a conversation about how to handle my own family, and especially my kids and myself during a crisis, and have a broader aspect for it. So the first session that we're going to have today, about an hour and 15 minutes until 9:30, we're going to talk about families and how I can handle, self-regulate myself and my family during crises, and what do I do? Practical tools, not a lot of theory. The other part would be after 9:30 is for therapists from the Ukraine that asked for a very specific training to how to handle what to do in a crisis mode and what to do with people that are calling them for help. So that's a very different kind of an intervention. There will be some things that are similar, but not so much. It's a very professional, session that we're going to have. And that's going to be offered after 9:30. The whole idea of this is that if people want to stay after 9:30, that's okay too. We're okay with that. Just for you to know that we will be offering this again next week for anybody that feels that they need more support. So if you're feeling like this was too overwhelming, it was too much, we don't know if we got everything out of it, you'll have the recording. That's one thing. And the second thing is that you can do that again next week. I'm going to give more practical tools. You'll have a chance to try out some of the things that you've learned today or picked up today, and then we'll be able to chat again. So it's not just going to be a one-time thing. Hopefully we'll be able to do that again next week. So with that being said, Aliona, do you want to wait? Do you want to start?
I think you will start. I will just say a few words, if I may. And
then I'll...
Thank you. So first of all, I want to thank you so much for doing that for us and for inviting us. It's a very, very big pleasure, to be honest, to have you here. And I know that you have amazing knowledge about what you're talking about, living in a war zone, about being a therapist as well. So I'm very, very thankful for that opportunity that you gave us. And for my colleagues, maybe I'll say a few words in a Ukrainian channel about you. So you will have a translation from what I...
Мовою для українських колег.
І я хочу сказати, що ми маємо з вами прекрасну нагоду слухати такого чудового спікера, і Ayelet справді професіонал своєї справи. Вона пережила війну, будучи і терапевтом, будучи професіоналом і будучи мамою. І це велика можливість для нас повчитися в неї, як бути в цих непростих обставинах, як виживати, як дійсно давати собі раду, як допомагати іншим. Тому я надзвичайно тішуся мати сьогодні її як спікера. І дякую всім за присутність, що ви мали час і виділили його на те, щоб бути тут і вчитися, хоча це дуже зараз непросто. Ми дуже це цінуємо.
Thank you.
Avi.
So Ayelet, is it okay if I just introduce you for a
Yes,
minute and we'll
please.
jump in?
Yes, let's do this.
So thank you everybody for coming. And I invite you, for anybody that's interested and feels comfortable, to write in the chat what part of the world you're in right now. We have people from all over the world. I know people signed up from North Africa, South Africa, West Europe, Eastern Europe, United States, Canada, South America. And it's really beautiful to see all of us coming together, you know, joining together as one, you know, human family, and learning together and growing. And it's very special. I have a very big feeling of solidarity now for the people in Ukraine, and we're very appreciative that we're able to share this with you. And we're really glad that you're here. And please make sure to stay safe during the event. And I want to just tell you a minute about Ayelet. I'm very excited that Ayelet is speaking tonight. I stumbled upon Ayelet not long ago, and I'm as excited to learn from her as you are. And Ayelet is a big expert in her field. And I ran a national program in Israel for a number of years in the disaster and trauma field. And when I meet somebody as good as Ayelet, it's like finding a very rare diamond. And I said, I have to have her speak. She has so much wisdom, so much knowledge, experience. And like Aliona said, she's also a mother. She lives in a place that's very violent and volatile. And so she knows what it's like not only to teach, but also to practice and to live, which she's going to talk about tonight. And I think that psychotherapy is an art and it's a science. And I think she's a scientist and she's an artist. So she's fun to listen to. She's going to be really practical and interesting. She's going to teach us a lot of really amazing things. And it's also that we can go through these difficult times as best as we can. I'm just seeing now in the chat box where people are from. It's pretty amazing what people are writing. Really amazing. Incredible.
Yeah.
Germany, Ukraine, Colorado,
Brazil. Yeah.
Brazil, Poland.
Yeah.
This is
Very cool.
unbelievable. I'm feeling such closeness with everybody. We're so glad that everyone came together. So this is going to be recorded. Okay, at the end of this presentation, stick around because we're going to give you information about how to get the recording. And Aliona, you wrote your email in the chat box for everybody in Ukraine if they want to be in touch with you.
I will write it down just in a minute.
Perfect. Okay, if you have any questions, please ask Ayelet in the chat box. If you want to be in touch at the end of this presentation, we're going to show you the way to get in touch and to receive the presentation. Without any further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Ayelet, and we're very excited.
All right. Thank you so much. So as I said at the beginning, this was supposed to be something very targeted for parents all over the world. And now we're having a little bit of this war situation that we're dealing with. So we're bringing that in. I do encourage you, if you're feeling like you're not getting what you need, or you have a more specific question, write it in the chat so I can look at it. And if I'm not seeing it, and if I didn't answer it, then Avi can stop me, Eliana can stop me, Natalia can stop me, okay? And then we'll talk about it. So what I want to do is I really want to jump into the materials. We're going to have this kind of a PowerPoint presentation that would kind of be joining us for the rest of the hour, but I'm going to go in and out of it, okay? First things first, if you have a second, write down the things that are most, that is concerning to you, that you think if she would answer this question today, that would be super helpful for me. So if you have a question, write it down. If you write it in Ukraine, then the ladies here are going to translate it. But if you write it in English, then I can read it, or in Hebrew, that's okay too. So if you have something like that, if you feel like you have a very specific question that you want answered, do it now so I can actually, answer it while we're still on air. Except for that, I want to jump right in. And Avi, if you see any interesting questions, so please stop me and let me know. And we're just going to jump into this, okay? So
maybe before you start, I will
Sure.
tell just one thing for you. We have a simultaneous translation, and sometimes if you talk too fast, it's hard for our translator to put it very, very fast for everyone else. So
Okay.
if you just can consider that,
Slow it
sorry.
down. All right, not a problem. So I will slow it down, which is definitely not a part of my character, but I'll do that. So when we're talking about crisis mode, the one important thing that we need to understand is that crisis, like this area here that we're talking about, right? The immediate care or the event itself, we're talking today about the event and the immediate care. Now, of course, that we can do a lot of preparations, but right now we're not there. We're talking about how to deal with intervention and immediate care. For the people in the Ukraine, think about it. We're dealing with an intervention, and eventually people are going to have to go and take care of themselves. They're going to have to go and process the events, okay? But that's not what we're talking about today. So I want you to be aware of the timeline that we're talking about. This is not psychotherapy. This is not treatment after the events. This is what do we do when we're under fire? What do we do when we have peaks of stress? And how do we handle it? Okay? We're not talking about psychotherapy right now. This is a very different thing. And it goes also for different events. If it's, God forbid, school shootings or car accidents or different crises that families go through, we're dealing with the same stuff. All right? I'm going to go for the goal. When we are creating any kind of an intervention as parents, okay, or as someone that is a friend of the family, and I know a lot of people are supporting their friends right now in different countries. I had friends in Colorado that've been through the fire that was in Colorado about 2 months ago. About 1,000 houses were burned down. And a lot of people were supporting them from afar. Okay, you pick up the phone and you create an intervention. So the goal of your intervention, every time you create one and every time you're trying to have a conversation with someone, is as such. One, you're going to bring them back to the baseline. And what that means is you're going to go for someone, for the way someone was before the event occurred. Okay. So if I have a kid that is usually, happy-go-lucky kind of a kid, but right now, after the event is irritable, is edgy, is aggressive, then I know something is off. And my job is to bring him back to the way he was. We're not trying to get him any better than that. We're just trying to get him to the way he was. That is super important, especially for parents, okay? And for therapists, to know that we're bringing back people to the baseline, nothing more than that. We're bringing them back to functioning. So if I had a child or that used to, shower on his own, we're going to take him back to being able to shower on his own. If a kid was able to feed himself, if a kid was able to go to the bathroom, that's what we're going for. In times of crisis, we are not shooting for someone to all of a sudden achieve things that are out of their age or things that they didn't do before the crisis. These are super important things to pay attention to because we want to maintain functionality. We do not want to go overboard because overboard in times of crisis, we're going to push the kid beyond their limit. That's where we're going to crush them. Okay. The rule number one of intervention is do no harm. Yes.
What I hear you saying, Ayelet, is, I'm thinking about a child in a war situation, and we're making this phone call, we're having this conversation. We're not trying to cheer them up to be the happiest child in the world.
No.
His life is disrupted. His family is moving from place to place. He's not in school. He's not with his friends. He's scared. So we're not trying to make it like Christmas Day or the happiest day of the year. We're just trying to maintain calm as best as we can. That's what you're saying.
Right. We are not cheerleaders. And I have to tell you, the one thing we know about kids is they can smell being lied to. They can smell, I'm sorry for the language, but BS, they can smell bullshit when it comes their way. So we want to know that we're keeping it real. We're keeping it reframed. We're going to talk about it in a second. How do you reframe things for kids to make that, to make it helpful for everybody? But we're keeping it real. And we're not asking them to do things that they couldn't do before. But we are keeping their functionality. And that goes for you too. Whatever you were able to do as a mom before, you want to be able to see that you can do it. A lot of people get very depressed in times of crises, and all of a sudden they're having a hard time to cook. They're having a hard time to clean. They're having a hard time to do basic things. We want to take them back with our intervention to the baseline. Okay? We're not dwelling on emotions during an intervention. So we're not going to sit there and say, oh, it sounds so hard, and we're going to cry about it. This is not what we're doing. We're trying to get people. We're going to validate them. We're not going to ignore emotions. We're going to say, it sounds to me like you're scared, or you look scared, or it is scary, or this is not fun. Okay? But what are we going to do about it? This is always our language. Okay? If we're trying to have one catchphrase for today, is you validate someone's emotions and then you ask them, what do you want to do about it? How are you going to go about it? What are you going to do? Always a call for action, okay? The reason being is we are not dwelling in emotions during a crisis, because when we do that, we are going to take the person and make him feel more helpless. And then in that way, what they're going to do, the minute they're helpless, they lose control over a little bit of they have, whatever it is that they had, and that's where we lose them, okay? Their potential to have a traumatic response or to develop PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, when that happens, is very big if they have a sense of helplessness, okay? So these are the major things that you want to keep in mind. And in a minute, I'm going to ask you guys to give me examples, and we're going to do it live, okay? These guidelines or these goals are not going to stay just as lines. We're going to talk about real events. We want to make sure that the person gains control, okay? We want them to feel that they have some kind of control over the situation. Now, a lot of people are going to say, are you crazy? We're in a war zone, or there's just been a fire or a tornado. I can't control anything. We can always find one thing that we have control over. And sometimes it's holding somebody's bag. And sometimes it's holding someone's hand. And sometimes it's bringing something to someone. We can always have control, find control over something. That little thing shifts the narrative. That little thing shifts our state of mind from being a victim to being in control, from being a victim or being helpless to someone that can actually feel like they can do something, to have a sense of resiliency. That's what we're shooting for, okay? In times of intervention, we are not processing, we're not dwelling, we're not talking about how our childhood was. We're not doing that. This is a moment in time where we're looking for resiliency, we're looking for self-efficacy, we're looking for strength, resources, we're holding the challenges with all the stuff that we already know about ourselves, and we're moving with it, okay? We're acting with it. Very, very different mindset than sitting in a therapist's office and saying, oh, let's talk about what my parents did when I was 5, okay? Very different. Now, As parents, we are used to, in times of crisis, to want to hug our kids, make them feel safe, and then make sure that they know that they have us, and we usually keep it like that. I am offering you comfort your child. You don't hold on hugs. You always give hugs, but then you ask them to do something, okay? You do not stay in that place or in that position where I give you hugs, I'm your anchor, and that's it, okay? We want our kids to feel like they can do something. We want them to feel a little bit in control. And that's what shifts the way they see things and the way they're going to experience this whole thing. We have it here in Israel. We're getting bombed all the time. And I can tell you that last time we had a bombing here, my kid was with me in the car. And I had a call. I had to run and get, had to help somebody that was stuck in a bomb shelter and had a stress reaction, a really severe stress reaction. And I was thinking to myself, I'm with my kid. What am I supposed to do? And what we did is I asked him to hold the ways, like the map, and give me the directions. So he was in control of something. He was doing something while he was in the car with me. And with that, I gave him a job every step of the way. So he came with me during a missile attack here, and we did what we needed to do. And at the end of the day, he remembered that he was able to do things, that he's got this, that he helped his mom and he helped another person. The minute they have that recollection, that narrative, they are no longer helpless. And when that happens, you don't have victims, you have resilient people. This is how you win a war, okay? This is how you do it. So the next line is emotional regulation, which is a huge thing. Generally speaking, with kids these days, a lot of kids, we feel that they go from 0 to 100, they like don't have that knob, right? They can't regulate themselves. They have a reaction and then they go from 0 to 100. It happens when we have a stress reaction. That's something that we do. So one of the things we're going to learn today, how to get kids and families to have some kind of an emotional regulation, okay? It's not an easy thing to teach within 5 minutes, but we're going to give you the basic guidelines for it and hoping that you'll be able to run with it. Physical regulation, I will explain the physiology of stress in 2.5 seconds. And the idea is trauma sits in the body, stress lives in the body. If we didn't figure it out until now, I'm sure we have by now. Stress lives in the body, which means I cannot step away from stress reaction while ignoring my body. I can't do it. I have to make sure that this body is in check. I have to release it. I have to do something, okay? The more techniques we have to be able to release our body, the better we are. We have to help children to learn how to do that. Yeah? Okay. Now, think about it this way. We run to the bomb shelter here in Israel. We have, in some places, 15 seconds, in some places, 20 seconds, okay? We run to the bomb shelter, and then when you're there, you have a choice. You can help your body and release the stress and maybe do some breathing exercises or maybe dance and kind of shake your body and shake the stress off. Or you can sit in a corner and cry. Or you can sit and do nothing. You can let your body shake and just sit with it. You have a choice. What we're asking you to do is to have enough techniques to help your families that when you feel that someone is having some kind of a stress reaction, to help them release it because it sits in the body, okay? So these are the basic goals of our intervention, and that's where we're going. Now I'm gonna stop this for a second, and I'm gonna ask if anybody, because I can't see the chat, if anybody has a specific questions regarding that. And please, just say what you think. I know it's a lot of people, but I'm sure we can get to a few questions. Anyone at all?
It sounds like many people can be in the same circumstance with the same invading army or fire or car accident or death of a loved one. And it's just about if you know what you can do for yourself and show up to the same situation in a different way, then you're going to experience it differently. Any questions for Ayelet?
So there is one question.
right,
There's
next
one
one, I'm gonna
question.
move on.
Which
Yeah.
exercises? Because you mentioned that there are certain techniques and exercises that you can do. Which ones?
Right. So we're going to talk about some of them in a second, but the basic ones, breathing exercises. Let's go over one right now. It's called the 5-2-5. Okay. It comes from the polyvagal theory. What it means is, in order for us to calm down, what we want to do is we want to tap into the vagus nerve, which lives right here. Okay. It goes from our heads, from the back of our heads, from the back of our brains, all the way into our internal organs. Okay. And when we activate it, it helps us calm down, because what the vagus nerve does is it is in charge of our anxiety, okay, and our emotions and our depression. Okay, it's kind of like it has like this little thermometer when it comes to that. Okay, it does other things too. It's also in charge of hormones or hormone levels. Okay, it does other things, but that's the things that are important for us right now. So what we want to do is we want to create a 5-2-5 breathing. The way you do it is you breathe in for 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you do it from your nose. You're smelling a flower. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You stop for 2. You hold it for 2, and then you take it out for 5, and you do it through your mouth like you're blowing a candle, right? Smelling a flower, blowing a candle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Stop for 2, and then you blow the candle. Now, do that for 2 minutes straight. 2 minutes. And you will see that your body will calm down. It will just start calming down. Try it out. Now, it doesn't fit everybody. Not everyone is okay with breathing exercises in the middle of a crisis. Okay? A lot of the times, what you want to do is you want to help people just release it. So if people are shaking, and a lot of the times during crises, you'll see that kids too, they'll do this, okay? They'll do this, they'll shake. Some kids are going to vomit. You'll see that too, okay? So one of the things that you want to do, we're going to talk about psychoeducation in a minute. One of the things that you want to do, and I'm going to step up for you. So we're going to shake the body, because if we're going to keep the stress, if we're not going to move, the shaking is going to get worse. We're going to feel it worse, right? Because if I'm trying to hold it, then I'm really feeling helpless, like I can't control my body. What we want to do is we want to do this. We're going to increase it. The reason we're increasing it is because when I do that, one, I already feel in control. I have more control over my body, and I don't feel like I'm losing any sense of control that I have over myself. So that shifts things for the state of mind, okay? So we're going to shake our hands. We're going to shake our legs. There's another exercise that is really hard to show when we're doing these kind of Zooms, but if you're going to twist, okay? If you're going to twist your torso back and forth, and you guys can see that in YouTube channels, if you're going to put it in, then you are going to really help regulate your adrenal gland, which is right here above your kidney. Okay? So think about it this way. In times of stress, our adrenaline gland is releasing adrenaline. Okay? And if we want to try and help kids and people just to regulate it, that's what we do. Now, what we've learned, that any kind of movement helps. When we go to people's homes in Sderot, when they're being hit by rockets, and we go there and people are having acute stress and they are reacting, a lot of the times just going for a walk back and forth helps. If you are in a war zone, you're not going to go outside to do that, but you can definitely sit in a bomb shelter or in the basement and jump and shake. Okay, you can do that. Anything that you can do to elevate the spirit and to move your body is better. Because if you're going to sit with that stress, you are going to feel it. And it's not going to get any better. It's going to get worse. Okay? I hope this answered some of it as far as physical stuff. Now, I want to move on to explain some of it, the physical symptoms, and I think that will help understanding the condition that we're dealing with. Where was I? All right. So think about it this way. We moved from the one thing that we're trying to do really during an intervention is we're trying for people not to have, not to develop PTSD, okay, post-traumatic stress disorder, because once you have those, it's really hard to shake them off. The antidote to PTSD really is the feeling that you are not helpless and you're not a victim. Once you have that, you're already halfway out of the, not out of the trauma per se, but out of seeing the trauma as a defining moment in your life that you cannot snap out of. Okay, I'm not going to go into PTSD and what it entails because there's a lot more to it. But people that have PTSD really cannot go back to the way that they used to function. It's really, really hard for them to do so. It's very important that we are not stuck in that position where we are experiencing a traumatic event, okay, which means a state of risk, existential risk, happens in a fire, in a car accident, happens in rape, okay? It happens in many different situations where we are fearful for our lives. It also happens, you can develop trauma also if your family member is risking his life, okay? If there's a fearful life of someone that you love, that you're in contact with, if you're a witness to something. So think about all the exposure that we're having on TV. If I'm going to leave the Ukraine for a second and I'm going to go for a second to 9/11, and all these people in the States that watched the Twin Towers fall, and all the people in New York and all the people that saw it on the news again and again and again, that kind of an exposure, being a witness to something can also create a traumatic, a trauma, okay, or it can also create some kind of reaction to trauma. So with that being said, we want to be mindful of exposure. We want to be mindful to how much we're exposing our kids and to what. Kids are not stupid. We know that. They can tell something is going on, but that doesn't mean that they have exposed to it 24/7. In Israel, we have the news here that are talking about bombs all the time. We are not supposed, and it's not a good idea to show the kids these news all the time. They should be informed, but not exposed to it 24/7, okay? So mediate things to your kids. Reframe some of the news and mediate. Say, you know what? Right now we're at war. That's what's going on. And I will let you know if things are changing. Or if there's, in case of a fire, there was a big fire. Right now, the firemen are working on it. And I will let you know if anything shifts or changes. See if you can mediate it, especially if kids are very, very young. These kind of sites can really, really damage them, okay? So we want to make sure that we are saying that we're careful with what it is that we say, all right? So I'm moving into something that is called shared reality. We're not going to talk about it for too long, but pay attention. You guys are in a crisis. So parents are in a crisis just as much as the kids are. A lot of the times we're supposed to manage a crisis, but we are under fire ourselves. We were in the car accident ourselves. We were in that robbery ourselves, and we are just as activated as our kids. We really want to be mindful of that, which means that all the techniques that we're going to talk about, and we talked about, you're going to have to do for yourselves first. Rule number one, take care of you first. Make sure you're okay, and then handle someone else. Pay attention, because that can be making or breaking an intervention. If I'm in a shared reality, the pros of that is that I can actually understand what's going on. I have rockets on my head too. I really can easily understand people that are calling me saying, I'm having an awful acute stress reaction. I need your help. I understand. I go through the same thing. I run to the bomb shelter. I get it. So that's the pros of it. The cons of it is that sometimes we are not in a good state of mind. We need to be mindful of it before we're giving any kind of advice. We need to make sure that we are emotionally regulated. We want to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves, especially if we're parents, in any given crisis. Okay? In any given crisis. You want to make sure that this shared reality is not something that is going to hurt us more than help us. And one
Ayelet,
of the, yeah,
Can I
sure.
ask something on that?
Yep.
A lot of times, people mean well, and they'll say something like, "You need to be strong for your family," or "You need to get strong. You got to toughen up. People are relying on you." You're talking about how everyone is in the same boat,
Right.
and the caregiver has to take care of themselves and be in a good whole place, a stable, strong place, in order to help somebody else. But you're saying that's what somebody should do for themselves. But what would you say about me telling somebody, hey, you better be strong for your family, they need you?
I say it's not what you say. I say that when you're dealing with, especially with kids, you tell them, we are in a situation. Yeah, it's not great. It's not great. But what are we going to do about it? Okay. Kids are going to say to us all the time, I'm scared. And the basic reaction would be, don't worry about it. You've got me. I'm right here. Well, that's not a good answer. Because again, and I know I'm going to say it a lot today, kids are not stupid. Okay. They know that something is going on. What you want to tell them is, you know what? It is a little scary. It is scary, but what are we going to do about it? Remember that sentence, that catchphrase that I said from the beginning? That's the phrase. It is scary. What are we going to do about it? What helps you? What would help us right now? Okay, that's what we're going for. Because the minute I ask you and you have an answer, or maybe I'll help you a little bit with the answer, but you're going to have an answer, you are not helpless. You are not a victim. You have an answer. Okay, we are trying to raise resilient kids in times of war. That's what works. In order for a community to thrive after a war or after a crisis, we need to have resilient people. Resilient people need to know that they are able to come up with something. And sometimes kids will give you very interesting answers. My teddy bear helps me. Hugging you helps me. When I dream of my grandma, that helps me. I don't care. It doesn't matter what the answer is. And sometimes they say, I don't know, it's just very scary. I'm like, yeah, it is very scary. Now let's think about ways to deal with it. I am not going to tell them that when rockets are flying, that things are not scary. I won't do that. I won't lie to them because I think it is scary. I will tell them there's something we can do. And I'm not going to tell them, hey, toughen up because we need you to be tough for the family. That is just not a good answer. It's no tool. It's nothing. When you say something like this to a kid, you really are giving him nothing. When you're telling him, you know what, I hear you. You're actually, yeah. But when we're scared, one of the answers that I give kids is that fear is here for us. It serves us. The reason we're scared is because fear is serving us. Fear is protecting us. If we weren't afraid, we wouldn't survive. Okay? You have to remember those phrases because they're really helpful. The reason we're scared of something is because we know we need to survive it. We need to be careful of it. So now that we know that fear did what it needs to do, now what do you want to do? Always present it back to the child. Always. I can tell you that also in grief moments when we lose people, they say, I'm so sad. And as parents, we have nothing to say. We don't know what to tell them. Okay? And in crises and when it's acute, when it happens right now, what we want to do is we want to give them that option. Okay? We want to always say, all right, now, what do you want? Where do you want to take it from there? It is scary. What are we going to do about it? Okay?
Ayelet, it sounds like you're also validating their feelings, and then you're
Yep.
also empowering them to do something practical.
Always validation. Always, what do you want to do about it? Call for action from them. Okay? The more a kid thinks something was his idea, the more he thinks, the more his self-confidence goes up. You want kids with self-confidence. Okay? So the more questions you're going to give them, the more answers they're going to come up with, the better they're going to feel about themselves, more empowered they're going to be. I'm not saying they're not going to be scared. It is scary.
I also hear in your words that we don't want to just give somebody 5 ideas that we thought of. We're trying to elicit the ideas from the
them.
person who we're working with.
Yes. Now, for little kids, give them 2 options. If you see that they're struggling, give them 2 options. Okay? And if they come up with, and if they have if they choose something and they have an answer, great. They think, okay, I can choose. That also makes them feel more confident. All right? So this is where we go with this. This is kind of how we handle it. And these are the things that fly out of our mouths when we deal with kids, when we deal with our family. Now, again, you want to be in that position first. Questions?
Someone is just not muted.
That's okay. All right. One more thing. When it comes to working with families and with kids, remember one thing. Whatever we do, we lead by example. Okay? I cannot tell a kid to calm down and to be self-regulated if I'm not regulated myself. Kids are going to learn from us whatever it is that we're doing. So I can lecture them from here to the moon what to do, but if I'm not self-regulated, they're not going to be regulated. Okay? It starts with us, especially with kids. It works like that within a classroom. It works like that within in our family, wherever that is. This is how it works. So in an intervention, I'm not going to go there being like this and try to, have an intervention like that with that kind of an energy, because it will kill it. And I'm not going to go in an intervention with this kind of a tone, because that's not real either. Okay? We need to keep it real for them. And also we want them to understand the fact that they are right now feeling scared or feel like their survival mode is kicking in. That's normal. That's good. That means their body and mind is working. Think about it this way. If you're going to be in a war zone and you're not feeling any kind of urgency, does anybody here think it's a good idea? No. You need to be in a place where your survival mechanism is actually working. So this is not a good time for kumbaya. This is not a good time to say, oh, we're just going to meditate all day. It's not. I don't know who's saying all these things, but it's not a good idea. This is a great time to be in a place where you understand and your kids understand and you educate them that there's such a thing as a survival mechanism. And survival mechanism is for times like these. It's for crises. And if they're feeling it, thank God, it means it's working. Now, how are we going to handle it? How are we going to use that? We got it for a reason, and now we can use it. So having said that, I want to go back into the physiological mechanism so you'll understand what it is that I'm talking about. You can use it in psychoeducation. Rule number 1, psychoeducation, which means knowledge, really, during intervention is magic. This is your key. Because if somebody's having an acute reaction and is very, very scared, if he doesn't understand what's happening to his body, he's already scared from his body reactions. He's not scared of the rocket anymore. He's scared of what's happening to him. What we want to do is we want to stop that by giving them education, by giving them an explanation of why they are shaking, why they are confused, why they're feeling how they're feeling. Because the minute that happens, and they understand that, they also feel like they have a little more control. Okay. And it's not snowballing into something that is really, really difficult. We have a lot of kids that during rockets here start vomiting. That's a normal acute reaction. Okay, it's acute stress reaction. This is a stress reaction when kids are, when the nervous system moves from parasympathetic to sympathetic, what happens is that think about it, our digestive system locks. And when it locks, we can feel nauseous, we can vomit. That happens. If a kid understands that, he doesn't think that something's wrong with him. He gets that his survival mechanism right now is working. And when they call and say that, when kids like that ask for help, I tell them, okay, that's super normal. It's going to go away when the stress goes away. That's normal. That means your system is actually responding. Now, what do you want to do about it? Do you want to help your body release some stress? Do you want to make yourself something to eat? I'm going to put it back on them. I'm going to make them help themselves. I hope that makes sense, because that's really part of the heart of all of this, of how to create an intervention. Does anybody have a question before I move on to the physiological stuff? What options do you give kids? What they might want to do about it? So that's a good question from Miriam Nedler. So the options that you give of what you want to do is, do you want to go and get yourself something to drink, or do you want to go help your brother? I can see that your brother needs help. Do you want to go and help him? Would you like to make some, in times of stress, everybody kind of needs something to ground them. So would you like to make something for everybody? Do you want to help me, or do you want to help your dad? Do you want to go set up the room for sleeping, or do you want to help me over there? You always want to give them something to do that has to do with the event. The more you're going to do that, the more they're going to feel valuable. If they're valuable, they're not helpless. If they're not helpless, you have a win. Day in, day out, every minute of the day, that's how we speak to kids. We are creating kids that feel like they can do things, not kids that think that they have nothing and all they have is what their parents are giving them. Okay? We are the anchor, but we are not just the only line of their air supply. We're more than that. Okay? So I'm gonna right now share a few more. I don't know why my screen just got super big. So
Sorry, I spotlighted you. Maybe I will remove it. I just
if it's helpful for everybody, that's fine. I just all of a sudden saw myself, and that's not good.
Sorry.
No worries. All right. So we're gonna move into it's okay. If it's helpful for other people, that's okay. Aliana, I was just surprised. That's all. So I want you to look at this. We're gonna do like a crash course here, okay, as far as what to look for. Understand that during a time of crisis, the red part here in the brain, that's our survival mechanism. That's what kicks in. Our executive state, our frontal lobe, the green part, is no longer in control, or it gets out of control and then in control after a few seconds. For some people, after a few minutes. For some people that have an acute stress reaction, a very severe one, the green part, it takes time for it to come back, okay? Which means they're very confused. They don't know what to do first. They can't answer basic questions. We always see these things on TV, right? These scenes on TV where somebody's being asked, they're rushed to the ER, and someone is being asked, well, is he your husband? And you're like, yeah, sure. When was the last time he ate? I don't know. What does he do? I don't know. That's acute stress. That's frontal lobe not functioning. I don't know where I'm at. Everyone is bombing, but I don't know what's on. That's acute stress. That's the frontal lobe not operating the way it should. Okay? Now, the red part, that's a survival mode. When that kicks in, that means the nervous Can you go over there and tell me how many pillows we have in the room? Well, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, you just counted. And if you counted, you have to use your frontal lobe. You have to use the green part. I am going to make kids use this part of the brain as much as I can with questions, right? My goal is to switch from this area in an intervention, from the red and the blue to this. And I do that by giving them a job, by let them figuring out things, by tell them, hey, I really need you to go and make me a list of the things that we're missing, of how many bottles of water do we have? How many bags of this do we have? Because if you do that, you're counting, you're writing, you're reading, you're activating your frontal lobe, okay? We ask people to make lists all the time when we're under attack here, when I talk to people as an intervention, because the minute they do that, all of a sudden they're functioning. All of a sudden they're doing things. And when they do that, first they feel in control, right? They feel like they have a job, they can do this, and they remember afterwards, after the event, that they were helpful. So I have ding, 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 right? I hit all marks for somebody to feel that he has self-efficacy, that he is confident enough that he is not useless, that he can do things. Now, the other part is this. This is the chain of events in the body, super important for us to know so we can explain it to the kids. The minute there's a crisis event, our amygdala fires up, right? That's the red part. It takes control and we can fight, flight, or freeze. We're not even going to go into it. Some people, these are 2 hormones that are released into the body, released into the blood, okay? Adrenaline gives us a ton of energy and cortisol gives us the sugar to do it. Okay, that's pretty much what's happening in those stress hormones. That happens, I have the limbic system in hyper, right? My emotions can go all over the place and my frontal cortex is not really operating. And I can feel helpless. This is where dysfunction gets in. This is where we think that we're dealing with trauma. What we want to do is we want to cut that chain of event right here. We want to go for the green, activate it, and then some of the kids are not going to feel helpless. And then this dysfunction is not going to happen. That's what we are shooting for. Okay? This is pretty much where we're going to go. And however you're going to go there, get there is fine. But that's where we're going. Now, not to say that we don't have times that we're not always going to have 100% success. Okay? But we can try. And we can speak the right language. Where we're telling kids, this is what we're going for. I need you to do this. I believe in you. I know you can do it. Okay? The minute we speak like that, the minute we give them a job, the minute we say, hey, I really need your help. Try it on your kids today. Tell your kid, I really need your help in something. A lot of them, if they're not teenagers, a lot of them are going to say, yeah. Okay, the minute they feel valuable, that's when we are in a good place with them. That's where we know that they are going to have enough self-confidence to deal with this and to deal well with it. Okay, so when it comes to the physical aspect of stress, you'll see confusion. That's the mental part of it. You'll see emotions. That's the limbic part of it. You will see behaviors. Some people in a crisis, they shut down. Some people get more aggressive and big, okay? And so we have, and you see physiological aspects, which is some shaking and heart rate that is going up. Now, these are things that you can use, okay? In times of crisis, I can tell my kid, did your heart just go, like, did your heart rate just go up, like it was really, really fast? And kids will say, yes, that was really scary. And I'm like, yeah, it can be, you can feel it as a scary thing, but what happens really is that's adrenaline. That's what adrenaline does. It gets your heart pumping really, 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 really fast so you can have a lot of blood in your hands and in your legs, so you can run fast and you can defend yourself. You say that to a kid, and all of a sudden, a lot of the times, and if you say it enough, they will be like, okay, so if that happens, that doesn't mean I'm gonna die. It doesn't mean my body is out of control. It means that my adrenaline and my survival mechanism is working. Okay? When kids call and I take the line in Sderot, like, or in Ashkelon here in Israel, under fire, they will say, I'm so scared, my heart, it feels like it's gonna jump out of my chest. And I always tell them, good, it means it's working. It's working. That's what's supposed to happen. Okay? So we wanna normalize it for them. We wanna say, digestive system might not work really well, but in a few days, it will go and it will be better. Okay? The confusion, you'll see, it's because of stress. That also goes away. Psychoeducation and normalization, like you normalize it for them, goes a long way in an intervention. Those are very basic tools. And instead of telling a kid, hey, don't worry about it, or oh my God, that's what's happening to you, we can actually say to them, this is what's happening. It's because your survival mechanism is working. Then you have yourself a different kid, okay, that is not scared of his own reactions and his own body. Okay. Now, do we have questions for this part? Because I'm talking a lot and I want to make sure that people are with me on this one.
Ayelet, what would you tell somebody who's hyperventilating? How would you work with them? Somebody that's they're breathing in that really fast way.
So I do the same thing all the time. I say, this is shallow breathing. This is because your body is going into a survival. I say survival mode because I'm not going to go and tell them, well, listen, during crisis and during stress, this is what happens to you, okay? I'm not going to say all these things, but I'm going to go for basic. This means that you're having a stress reaction. Now, I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you, and you're going to see that it's going to slow down. The best way to do it is if you and I are going to go for a walk. We're going to walk it off together, okay? That's what I do with them. Sometimes people want to stay put when they do it, and it's harder to get it under control. If they are willing to try to breathe, that's great. But a lot of people don't want to do that. A lot of people would say, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. And what you want to say to them, you can breathe, but this shallow breathing, that's a part of acute stress. It means your body is in stress mode. It will go away, and there's a way to handle it. Let's go for a quick walk, even if it's about the room. When we're sitting in a bomb shelter, there's nowhere we can go to. But we're walking in the room, and nice and slow, okay? If you guys have straws, that's a great way to use, something to use for that, okay? Blow out of a straw. That's something that a lot of kids do. And we're using soap bubbles to help kids kind of figure out a way to breathe. But I'm not going to do that at first. I'm going to ask them to first walk around, calm down with me. But again, do the psychoeducation while you do that intervention. Like, it's shallow breathing, because a lot of people feel like they're going to have a heart attack. You want to help them out, because when somebody feels that they're having a heart attack, he's not feeling in control. Okay? We want to take that away, and we're going to give them control. So we're going to say, this is your body's reaction. That's normal. Let's do it together. Slow it down together. We'll do it together. Okay? Now, when people are in distress, they feel lonely. It feels like it's the loneliest thing on the planet. The one phrase that you want to have always, I'm right there with you. I'm not leaving you. I am right here with you. You're not doing this alone. I'm right there with you. Now let's do it together. You can do that. Usually we have somebody that understands what's happening to their body, that understands they're not going to be alone in this, and already doing something about it. So again, we're hitting all marks. And that's what we're trying to do. Okay? Are there any other questions from?
Yeah,
here
there's
is
one
another
question in the chat.
Yeah.
What to do if a child is hysteric and does not hear you? Like doesn't want to talk about their feelings, even though is experiencing some feelings.
Can you give me the whole scenario for a second? Give me the whole thing.
Ayelet, was it a question in response to my translation of the question? Because there was
Yeah,
another participant talking at the same time.
Right. So what I was asking is, if you can give me the whole scenario, then I can help.
The scenario of this question,
Right.
that
Of a
the child
kid
is
being
hysteric.
hysterical.
Okay.
Right. Right.
Maybe she's typing.
Okay. Here's the thing. Really, what you want to do when a kid is hysterical, the first thing you want to do is you don't want to panic yourself, which means we need to understand that under stress and other crises, people are going to have a hard time. And these are kids. They've never seen war before, okay? For us, we're adults. We've seen things, okay? It's okay for them to be completely out of their wits, out of their minds, feeling like they're out of control, okay? What does it tell you? Do something about it first. For yourself. Tell yourself, okay, take a deep breath. You've got this. You tell yourself, okay, what am I trying to do? As a parent, what am I trying to do? Am I trying to get him not to feel anything? No, because I can't do that for him. Am I trying to get him to go back to his baseline? Yes. Am I trying to get him, can I make him feel safe in this atmosphere, especially right now in the Ukraine? Probably not. I can make him feel safer. Okay? Right? Am I going to try and get him to feel like he's a little bit more in control? Is that my goal? Ask yourself, what is your goal a second before you touch your kid? Because what happens a lot of the times, parents see a kid hysterical and they lose it themselves. And when you approach it and when you're like this, there is nothing you can do to calm down the situation. Okay? So what we want to do, we want to be super mindful. What are we trying to gain? Is my kid having a reaction that is a stress reaction for a crazy situation? Okay, that's normal. Now, if I can see that it's normal, you'll be able to see that it's normal. If I'm going to panic over it, he's going to panic over it. Okay? You have to be super understanding that the way you are approaching something is super important to the way the kid is going to receive your help. So if you want to have an intervention, ask yourself, okay, do I see that this is a stress reaction? Yes. Do I understand that it feels a little big? Okay. What do I want to gain? What is my goal? My goal is to get him to the baseline. Okay. If you can approach it like this, you'll be able to go and do, if you cannot hear psychoeducation, what you want to do with kiddos, you hug first. Okay. You move them, create a lot of movement. All right. With the hugging, that can help. Okay. You breathe with them, you breathe together. Kiddos are silly. Kids are silly. They like silly things. So the sillier you are, the better it is. Okay. You don't tell them, hey, you do these breathing exercises, just do them on your own. No, you do it with them. If they're like, if they're like this, you are right there with them. Because the minute your body moves the way their body moves, they can calm down. It's called pacing and leading. You're going to mirror them, okay? If it's panicky all over the place, you mirror them. You say, okay, but you're showing them that you're in control and you're speaking in. Your body is having a reaction. It's a stress reaction. It's a normal reaction because when we're stressed, that's what our body does. We are going to take control of it together. That's what we're doing, okay? You don't lecture them. You don't sit above them. You don't speak in words that they don't understand. You look them in the eye, and you're not trying to save them. Okay? You have a goal. You're trying to get them to have this working and this calming down. So it's in the body. We're shaking our body, right? We're doing it with them. We're holding them tight. And we're breathing with them, nice and slow. And if they're going to say it's scary, I'm not going to tell them, oh, it's over now. It's not scary anymore. Because I'm not going to believe a word that falls out of your mouth when you say that. Because they're not stupid. Okay? You can say, I have you. You and I, we're in this together right now. What do you want to do? You want to sing a song? Do you want to stomp? Ground them if you can. Stomping is grounding. Anything that you can do that is grounding, do it. Tell them your body needs help right now. What are you going to do to help your body? The minute you ask these kind of questions, they're already in control of their body because they're trying to figure out what to do to control it. They're not a part of it. You see what I'm saying? The minute you detach them a little bit with your questions, that's what happens. Be empathic. Empathy goes a long way, but don't dwell. I see that it's really hard for you. I can see that your body is having a hard time and that you are having a hard time. I can see that. That's gotta suck. What do you want to do? How are we moving from here to here? One big thing that we do in interventions is we're explaining kids and families and adults that the fact that we're scared right now, that we have stress, that's not the end of the story. That's just a part of the story. There's always something after. After you're scared and sad, what happens then? Okay? If we're going to talk about the crisis or the event as the end of the line, then forget about it. Then they can't see how to come out of it. But if you're looking at it and saying, okay, yeah, right now it's very scary. Well, what are we going to do about it? Because there's something after fear. There is something after a crisis. There's something after a body reaction. There's always something. You have to develop a certain language in order to talk to kids like that, because every kid and every adult has strengths, has resources, has something that they can rely on. If we believe it, they'll believe it. If we talk to them like they have nothing, they have no resources, they have no strength, they'll believe that too. Okay? You shift the way you speak to kids. It's good for war. It's good for peacetime. It's always good to raise resilient kids and not noodles. Okay? Now, kids under fire, they're having a hard time. So we are trying to really elevate the way they think about themselves and the way they see things. Okay? I hope this answered the question.
Can I ask something?
Absolutely.
How do we work with the lost? How do we work with someone that lose their parents at the same moment, or something like that?
Yeah. The whole I guess area of grief and loss, that's a big one, especially if it's, I don't know if you're talking about something that happens and you are still under fire or in a war, or is it something that happened and you have time to process, because those are two different things.
I'm interested in both, but if talk about fire situations.
So think about it this way: if you have to give all these news, okay, awful news of grief and loss, and you are still under fire, you need that person to function. You don't have the luxury to fall apart, to sit and to do all the processing and grieving. You don't. You have to have that person go through probably a stress reaction, but then again, move them into action. Give them something to do. Be busy with things that are very, I know it sounds awful, but what are you going to do? Where are their things? How are you going to move on? Burial and stuff like that, okay? This is when you're under fire, because you need them to function. You can't have them fall apart, okay? If you're talking about a time afterwards, when there's time to process, that's a whole different story. Okay? You expect the stress reaction, but when that happens, you are not trying to get somebody to not fall apart. It's okay to cry and to fall apart when you lose your parents. Okay? So it's okay to be in that position. You can always say, and people are going to say, I miss them so much, it hurts so much, and it's okay to miss. We are not used to saying to people, it's okay to be uncomfortable. It's an awful feeling to lose somebody. It's awful. But it's something that you do. It's gonna feel awful for a long time, actually, not for a little bit. Okay. What do you want to do? How do you want to handle it? How do you want it to look like? It's a process. Okay. We all lose people all the time. The kid losing his parents, that is an awful thing. Okay. But we set up the expectations. That's a really important thing. We tell people this is not something that is going to go away in a day, and it's not going to go away in a month. It's going to take time to process it. So psychoeducation, again, of grief is something that is complicated. It takes time to heal from it. You're going to also have times where you're going to be okay during that time when you're grieving. That's okay too. But there's a big difference between doing it under fire, where you need that person to not dwell in emotions right now. When they miss them, you can miss them, you can cry for a little bit, and then you have to move on to the next thing and do something, because that's the only way to survive. Okay? If we're going to compare this to Holocaust times, if we're going to compare this to really craziness of war anywhere in the world, where people have to survive when they lose people along the way, or when you are after the crisis and you're now processing it, okay? But allowing people to understand that this is a process, psychoeducation is a big thing. And we usually don't tell that to kids. They don't know. They really don't know what it entails. And I don't think a lot of adults know, that it just takes a long time to heal. I hope that answered, Nechama.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
Ayelet, we have a question in the chat from Charlotte. She said, please, may I ask, how do you work with someone who has a relative who is missing?
Oh, that's a tough one. Can you give more about this specific missing? And the crisis is, missing in a war zone, or missing like a kidnap situation, like in the US, or do we have an answer?
We're waiting to see if Charlotte answers, but what I'm just as a person on the side thinking about this is, when we compare it to what Nechama asked, where people died, we know that there's an end. We just can't process it. When we're talking about somebody missing, there's this ambiguous loss where we don't know, should I now grieve them? I shouldn't grieve them. How do I decide to relate to this person or situation? The uncertainty.
Okay, so
here,
she just said, yeah, I'm volunteering in Poland. Here's the thing with this, because this is a crazy situation and it's a war, and when you're missing somebody, you really don't know how long it's going to take until you have contact with them or whatever. And I'm a big believer that if you set up the expectations and you set up goals for people, it's easier for them to handle things. Okay, so our goal is to know what's happening to that person. We don't know right now. This is the uncertainty piece, right? That is really, really hard to stomach. We don't know. Now, from all the things that you don't know, what do you know? Is there anything that you have control over? Is there any piece of information that you do have? You stick to what you know, okay? Not to the things that you cannot control. You stick to the things that you can control. I don't know where the missing person is. I do know, however, that every day I'm going to go to the border and I'm going to look at the lists. And I know that I'm going to look at the lists, and if I'm not going to find them, the expectation is that I'm going to be very sad for at least an hour after, okay? And I'm going to be, feeling down and I don't know how to even, explain it. But what am I going to do after. The people that are on the border are still in crises. Make no mistakes about it. The people that are refugees and are on the border are still in a crisis mode. Crisis has not been averted. It's not done. So we need them to be in a place where they are still functioning and functioning well in order to survive. So after everything, right? After fear, we're asking, what do you do afterwards? After the fact that you went and you looked at the list and you couldn't find them, what are you going to do next? We're going to mark the calendars. We're going to ask people, and we're going to see who we're going to contact. We're going to make sure that we do this, this, and that. The more roles they have, the more jobs they have, the better they are. Okay? Because if I have a job and I'm active, I'm not sitting there helpless. That is a major shift in thinking. I am not going to sit and see them spiral. I'm going to allow them to be, sad, but I'm also going to limit it. We're very sad. We're very worried. We understand that. Now what? You validate, you move on, because they're still on the border and they really need that functioning mode. They need to feel it, because otherwise we are going to lose them. Okay, their bodies might survive, but mentally, they're not going to be there. Okay, and we're trying to get people to be resilient so they can actually survive this thing and have a life after. We don't want post-traumatic stress. We want post-traumatic growth. There's a big difference. Okay, we want people after this thing to be able to have lives. So the more they're going to function right now, the more they're going to feel like they can do something about something, the better they're going to be. I hope that answers. But I really do believe that the people that are on the border, especially the refugees, the more jobs and roles and things they have to do, the better they are. Okay? I'm going to see if we have any time to continue. I don't know. We're kind of cutting it close. Do we have any more questions? Yes, no. Okay. So I want to continue just for a little bit, really just to move on. And I know it's a lot to take in for one day, but this is something that we talked about a second ago. And I said, if somebody's in a panic mode, do not be alarmed. Okay. Understand that you're going to see with kids sometimes regression in behavior. That means if they're potty trained, all of a sudden they're peeing on themselves. Okay. If they're used to sleeping alone, they're not. Some are going to show and they're going to exhibit regression in their behavior. In speech, all of a sudden they're going to be talking like they're younger. Don't be alarmed. Understand that it's a part of the behavioral reaction to a crisis. That's okay. Okay. Sometimes you're going to see a lot more aggressions in their behaviors, and sometimes avoidance. Afraid of the dark. Don't want to go to the bathroom alone. Will not do things that I'm used to doing. Will not go see my friends. Will stick to my mom and dad. Will not touch anything. Will avoid any kind of action. That is normal. Okay? Moodiness. We see that in kids as well. They will be moody. Okay? They will shift from laughter to sadness to anger to feeling helpless. We want to make sure that we allow it. We want to observe it. And this is a part of our assessment. What's going on for our kids? Don't panic over it. Say it. I can see that you're angrier. I can see that your mood shifts all the time. What do you want to do about that? Okay? I am not going to try and tell a kid, hey, don't be moody. I'm going to say, I see that since this started or since this happened, you're moody. Your mood shifts. What do you want to do about it? How can I help you? Okay? Put it on them, ask them questions, let them engage in the conversation. Don't be alarmed, because the minute you panic, they panic. Remember that. They're like your little mirror. The minute you do something, they do something. And that happens at the same time. You'll see shifts in appetite and sleep patterns, a lot of things that are going to shift for a kid after a crisis. Do not be worried about it. Just be mindful, pay attention, and say, okay, this is what I need to target, and tell the kids, narrate it. This is what I'm seeing. Let's do something about it. This little picture, okay, is for you to understand that you are at the heart of it. You, not your kid. If you're going to be okay, if you're going to take care of yourselves, you will be able to take care of your family. You will not be able to do that if you're not paying attention to your self-regulation, to your body, to your stress levels, okay? All the tools that we talked about, moving from the limbic system and the survival mode, the frontal lobe, try to do that for yourselves. Having a job, having a role, do that for yourselves. Understand that as parents, or as anyone right now in a crisis mode, the minute you have a job, you're not helpless. So the minute you have a role and you're doing something, you already pulled yourself out of that loop of feeling helpless. You're already more resilient than you thought you are, okay? So make sure you are a part of something. Make sure you're reaching out, you're helping. If you have a friend that is right now in crisis or in a different country, help them out, even by a phone call, okay? Because that goes a long way for you, with your stress level, and for them. It starts with us. We cannot help people if we are not doing well, okay? I know I don't have time to deal with the basic guidelines and all that, but I think we covered enough stuff for today. What I want to say is that we are going to have another one of these next week. I'm going to ask you guys to set it up. We're going to do that next week. And I'm hoping that anybody that wants to hear more, because there's a lot more of techniques and tools that we can use to join, okay? And we, again, try things that we said today. If it doesn't work for you, bring it back and say, hey, lady, your things didn't work, okay? And that's okay too. We'll talk about it and we'll see what will work for you, okay? The most important thing is to take care of yourselves as parents and to understand that you are modeling. So you have to worry about yourselves first and then worry about everything else. So if you have any questions, I'd love to take it. If not, we're gonna move on to the next part of this for therapists. And we're gonna take a 5 minutes break and we'll rejoin in 9:35. But before that, I wanna ask if anybody has any questions. Aliona, can you move me back to the big screen where I can see everybody? Because I can't gauge what's going on in the crowd. Awesome.
Okay, there are a lot of thank yous. It's been useful.
Okay.
It's been very interesting.
Does anybody have any last questions before we kind of wrap it up?
Can I have a question?
Yes. Yeah.
As a method to help them in this situation. And also you was telling about how important it is to ground people. Can you tell me what kind of method to ground people we can use by a phone call?
So what I do, a simple thing is I ask people to rub, okay? You rub your body, you really do. You rub your hands, you rub your legs, you stomp your feet, okay? And you do that with them on the phone. You tell them, because you want them to go back to their bodies. You want them to be back in there. That's what you want to do. Now, and it's a simple trick, but gum helps. It helps bring saliva back into your mouth. So your body kind of gets a feedback where it means that the danger is gone a little bit. Like stress level can go down a little bit if you have saliva in your mouth. So a gum helps grounding. Carrots, anything crunchy, okay, helps us ground. If you're in Israel, it's bisli. But if you're not in Israel, I'm sure you can find something crunchy to munch on. It does help, okay? And if you do it with somebody on the other line, it's something to do. But for the most part, it's telling people, hey, you want to get back to your body. You want to control this thing. The message is the same message all the time. If I'm in control, I can handle this, okay? So that's for grounding. And we can do a lot more of this next time when we meet, hopefully, that you guys will be on and we can do this. So I want to say thank you so much. Now, you will see at the end of this, and I'm going to put it here right now, just for you to know, this is where I guess the video is going to be. It's going to be on a YouTube channel. You guys are going to get a link. So if you want to look at it again, you can. Okay. I don't know. Are you seeing this?
We don't see your screen yet.
Here, can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. So this is where if you want to, take a picture with your phones, or I think Avi already sent something.
Yeah. If they send an email to the email address here, they will get a link to the YouTube channel where we're going to upload this video so that people can review this later. There's actually also another video in Ukrainian that we did 2 weeks ago that might be interesting to some people as well. 20-minute short video.
Perfect. So take a look at this, and if you just need a refresher, or if you need to see it, or if you want to give it to other people, that's okay too. That's actually more than welcome. Please do that. Share the knowledge, because that's what we need right now. So
Yeah.
I want to say, really, thank you so much for the opportunity to talk to you guys, and I'm hoping that next week we can do one more. And I hope it was relevant also for people that are not from the Ukraine, but are dealing with some different crises with their families or friends. All right. So, Aliona, we're going to take a 5-minute break.
Yeah. So let's take a 5 minutes break. And after that, we are waiting for psychotherapist and psychologist to continue. And for everyone else who joined today, we are very thankful for you to be with us.
So, thank you so much. So I'm going to put my stuff on hold. Sorry?
How to join next part?
So just
Next
stay
part is here. You can stay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So I'm going to go for 5 minutes.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much. Fantastic. So 5-minute break, and then we're going to continue for therapists. Anybody that wants to know how to get in touch with the further events that we might be arranging next week, please be in touch with, if you're in the Ukraine, please be in touch with Dr. Aliona. And if you're anywhere else in the world, feel free to be in touch with me as well. Okay, let's take a 5-minute break and we'll come right back.
So we had one more question. I think I found it. I hope I found it. Can we ask you now or maybe later on?
No, you can ask me, man. Yeah.
I can ask you. Yeah? So it's about a child whose father died during the fight, and his body was burned. So the death was established according to evidence later on, but the child doesn't acknowledge the death, and he's considering everyone a traitor who's admitting that his father died, including the mother as well. So the question, I guess, is how to help the child.
How old is the child?
That's a good question. It's not written there. We'll wait
So first
for
we need to know how old he is. And second, what I would do is I would go for the subtext, which means, because what he's saying is, I can't handle this. So much.
Дитині було 10 років, зараз 17.
The child was 10, now he's 17.
He was what?
10, now he's 17.
So this happened when?
7 years ago.
Oh, wow. So this is not acute. This is something that
На
happened.
початку війни.
That happened
so-
at the beginning of the war, because basically the war in Ukraine started in 2014.
Oh,
I
I
guess
know,
he's
I know.
talking about the 2014.
Right. So he's talking
phase
about
of the
when they
war.
went in the yeah. That's 2014 is really where it started. So it is 7 years. So we're not talking about acute. This is not something that just happened right now. Okay, so in situations like that, I don't go for logic because it's not logical, right? Because the kid is telling you 1 + 1 is not 2. Okay, and when that happens, you want to go for the subtext. And what he's trying to tell you is, I can't accept it. Because if I will accept that my father is dead, then what? He's also telling you, I cannot handle it. It's too much for me. So what you do when you listen to the subtext, first you need to figure out which subtext it is. Okay? When you realize what the subtext is, you want to go for that. Okay? You just want to go for that. What happens if you're going to have to, what does that mean that you cannot handle it? Because that's what he's saying. He's saying, I cannot handle the news. Something in me will break. I will not have hope for, right? Fill in the blanks. Help him out to talk about the subtext, because if you're going to tell him, well, you need to acknowledge this, you're not going to get anywhere because it's not logical. He cannot handle something like this because he will fall apart. And you say it. You say it. You always say it for him. You say the subtext and you say it in a very, very soft, empathic way. Okay? Does that make sense? A lot of the times what we want to do when it doesn't make sense, we want to go for logic. We're going to make him understand. He gets it. He's not stupid. You just cannot, because what happens if he will lose faith? If he will lose hope? Does that mean that he gave up on his dad? That is an awful thing to ask a kid. Okay? You go for that. You go for the subtext. You don't go for the freaking text. It means nothing. I hope that gives you an answer. I have to tell you, I've dealt a lot with grief and loss. It's part of my stuff. That's what I do. I've done it in Colorado as a therapist, and it's never an easy thing, because we feel like, okay, what can I say to someone when the worst thing ever happened to them? So we need to be very mindful of it, but we also have to go step by step with it and understand what people are saying, because not everybody's saying the same thing.
So there's
So are we
thank you for
starting?
the answer. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do this.
Okay. So I am gonna, 1 second, close the chat here. Okay. We still have people on, because when I look at the big screen, I can't tell people's faces and I can't see,
We
so
have 150 people.
So people are still here? Okay.
Sure.
Yes.
So, yeah, I can't see them. So here's what we want to do right now. We're shifting, and we're shifting to talking to therapists that are going to do some interventions. Okay. And it's a very different mindset from a therapeutic process. All right. When we're doing, I have a clinic. I do dynamic, and I do CBT, and I do different kinds of therapists. I'm an existential psychotherapist, actually, trained in Colorado. But when we're dealing with stress and with interventions, really, we're switching our hats. And I think that is the biggest thing that we need to remember as therapists, that we're no longer doing a process here. We have very different goals when we're dealing with an intervention. And I think right now in the Ukraine, that's what we're doing. Okay. So we're going to go over this, and I don't know who was in the last session, but we're going to talk about it as therapists. So let me bring the right, hold on. I'm going to bring up actually the right slides up. And again, if you have any questions, always ask them in the chat. And I'm going to try and slow down my speech as we do this. Okay. So here's how we're going to talk about it. So talking about this, we are really talking about a crisis intervention. This is not a process. Okay. This is not a therapeutic thing. This is not a trauma-focused psychotherapy. None of that. In Israel, I have to tell you, we do very different things. We do preparation, which means resiliency within the community. We do intervention during war. And then we have a process and a trauma-focused psychotherapy and all that. This is not what this is about. This is only for intervention because this is the stage that you guys are in. Okay? So we're going to focus on that. We want to be mindful that crisis intervention is mental first aid and not a therapeutic process. Now, before I continue, did they get the slides in Ukraine? Because I know she translated those. Avi, do you know?
So we
Yeah,
send it here. We send it here, but I'm not sure that everyone got it. I will send it
So
one more time.
Okay, so because you guys are going to get it in the chat, you're going to have a link to this, whatever it is that I'm showing, and it's going to be in Ukrainian. So maybe it will be easier for you to see it that way. Okay. All right. So we're moving on to crisis intervention, mental first aid. This is just like first aid, just a mental first aid, and it's not a therapeutic process. Now, when you're doing this practice, you want to remember, you want to be very short, straight, concise. Your tone of voice is not like this. It's very assertive. The reason we're assertive is because when we are, people join us. They believe us. If we're hesitant, if we're asking these questions and doubt, the here and now, we are not talking about what's going to happen a year after, what's going to happen in a few weeks. We are dealing in an intervention. We're trying to get the person to go back to his functioning mode and to feel like he can get over this specific crisis at the moment. So there was a bombing and people are having an acute stress reaction because they just saw a bunch of stuff or they just lost someone. This is where we get in. Okay, this is where our job is, whether on the phone or in person. Think about it this way. If it's on the phone, your assessment is going to look very different because you're not able to see the people's reaction. You're going to have to ask a bunch of questions, okay, to know what is the full picture. We're going to go through the stages in a few minutes. These are stages that I don't give the general population, just for therapists. So we're going to go through the assessment in a second, but you're going to have to remember that the things that you see face to face is not the same as on the phone. So sometimes on the phone, you're going to have to ask more stuff. Okay. If at any point there are any questions, let me know. I'm moving on. Goals of the intervention, we talked about it before. Quickly for the people that weren't there. We're taking people back to the baseline. If a kid was whiny before and he's whiny now, nothing shifted, nothing changed, okay? If he was whiny and crying, if he wasn't whiny and crying before and he was okay, then we have something that we need to get him back to. Check the baseline, ask before so you can know what changed, okay? We have to get people back to functioning. That is our goal. If they function, they survive. If they don't function, they don't survive. Super important when it comes to intervention. We're not sitting in emotions as therapists. We're used to asking, how are you? So tell me how you're feeling. Scratch that. Okay? We're not mean, but we're saying, hey, my name is Ayelet. I'm here to help you. What is your name? Where are you at? What is it that you need? What's going on for you? I'm not going to ask him. So tell me how you're feeling. Take that out of your vocabulary in an intervention. If somebody's saying, I'm feeling very scared, you validate them and you move on. Okay? Super important, people. This is a very different thing. Okay? Our job is to get them to gain control. Dealing with emotional regulation, physical regulation, we'll deal with it in a second. Okay? And we will. So we're not going to talk about what trauma consists and PTSD. I'm not going to go through the theory because I don't think that's what you need right now. Shared reality, remember, you guys are in the same position as they are. Okay? And even if you're not in Ukraine and you have family there, you're in the same boat. So be mindful of it and also make sure that you're taking care of yourselves. Now, there is such a thing that is called continuities. I hope that you guys know what that is. And if not, we're going to go over it really, really fast. Continuities is the things that we know that happen the way we know that they happen all the time. So for example, I have a functional continuity. I'm a mother. That's one of my functions. I have a role, okay? And another role is that I'm a therapist. Another role is that I'm a trainer. I'm a daughter. I'm a dog owner. I have all these roles. In times of crises, this role breaks. It breaks, okay? So part of my assessment is to know what broke for people. If I was somebody's child, and now I'm not because my parents died, and it's a break in some of my functions, and that's a huge break, okay? If I was a teacher before the war, and all of a sudden I'm not a teacher, then that's a break in my function, but it's a smaller break, okay? So think about it this way. There's a functional continuity, a social one. So I had my social group that I'm a part of, maybe colleagues, maybe friends, maybe my family. A lot of it has been disrupted during the pandemic, that's one, and during a war, okay? So pay attention to these. Cognitive continuities that were rules. You used to know that there are certain rules in Ukraine. Right now, it's a chaos. There are no rules that apply. You don't know that 1 + 1 = 2 in the Ukraine at the moment, okay? So this is a break in continuity. Personal and historical continuity is super important. I thought I was brave. I never thought I would react like this to a bombing. I never thought I would react like this to, I don't know, something that happened right now in Kiev. I thought I was brave, okay? It's a break in the way that we know ourselves, the way that we believe that we are. As therapists, ask questions to assess what was broken. Because a lot of the times, if you make the assessment and you know what it is, you're also gaining a knowledge of exactly where the issue sits. And you can help them tackle it. Do you understand that? That is super important. This is a tool of assessment. If I see what broke, then I can, first explain that not everything shattered, some of the things shattered, and we can go for the things that are more challenging. Okay, it's just another assessment tool. We're not gonna linger on it. We're gonna move on and see if you can use it with some of the examples that you're gonna give. I'm not gonna go over the limbic system again. The whole point again, in an intervention, we are trying to get people to move away from the limbic system, from the blue part, to the functioning part, to the green part, okay, to the frontal lobe. And we do that by giving them things to do, by asking the questions. Now, it's not that we're not understanding that they are having a hard time. That's not the point, okay? We're validating the emotions and we're moving on. The biggest thing I want you to understand, when people are right now in the Ukraine and they're under fire, we are not disarming them, meaning survival mode is an important mode for them right now. They need it to work. We do not want people doing kumbaya, okay, which means, meditate and think about, no. If they are having the survival mode working, that's what needs to happen right now. That means they're smart. Okay? We just don't want it on overdose. We don't want it to be in a place where they're not functioning. We need them to be in a survival mode in such a place where they understand they need that to survive, but it's not creating issues for their functioning. This is a very important thing to distinguish, and this is something that you need to say to your people. If somebody's calling and asking for help, and he says, I'm not sleeping very well, well, good. You're in times of crisis, you're not supposed to sleep very well. If you're sleeping very well, like 12 hours a day, then something's off. Okay? If you're not feeling any sense of urgency, something is off. So you want to make sure that you normalize it. And normalizing it means that it needs to be normal to the conditions that they're in. They are under attack. They're in a war zone. If they don't have the survival mode, something is up with them. Then that's not good. Okay? So if somebody's saying, every time there's a siren, my heart pounds, okay, that's what's supposed to happen. Your body is releasing adrenaline to the body, to the bloodstream, so you can react because it's times of crises. Okay. And another understanding of the condition that we didn't talk about before. Think about it this way. The minute the war started, everybody's stress level went up. Okay? So if we started at 10% normal stress level of life, we are right now at 40%. Every time there's a siren, you go to 100 and you go back. You go to 100 and you go back. Okay? If the forces are coming your way and closer to you, your stress level goes up. We are no longer at 0 stress level. We are no longer at just 20 stress level. Okay? People need to know that. Normalize that. Explain to them that right now, everyone is on 40. In Israel, it happens every time we have rocket attacks. It also happens every time during the pandemic. Every time there was a lockdown, everybody's stress level went up. The whole country was on 40. And then from there were peaks. Okay? There were craziness of different things. Normalize it to people so they'll know what with it. Psychoeducation goes a long way. Knowledge is power. They know it, they can start doing something about it. Okay, your job is to get them to do exactly that, to understand what's going on for them. Okay, any questions about that? Because that's super important.
So far, we don't have a question. Maybe it will be, but I'm using this opportunity to say that now we will change the interpreter because our first interpreter needs to go and another one will continue. So Marina, are you here? Yeah, good, great.
Ayelet, I want to say thank you very much. It's been a great pleasure, and I really hope to get to work with you again next week. I loved your style of delivery, very emotional, very energetic. It's in line with my personality in this position. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ola. Thank you.
By this chance, I will say also thanks to Ola while she's still here. Thank you so much for the translation.
Very sweet. Thank you. So do we have someone else?
Yes. Marina is
Ludmila, are you raising your hand? Yeah, sure.
Дякую. Є запитання. Я з України, знаходжуся зараз у Польщі і працюю в школі і садочку з українськими дітьми, допомагаю їм адаптуватися із батьками. І я хочу запитати, чи це є кризове втручання, чи це вже чи в цей час потрібно кризове втручання, чи в цей час потрібна вже терапія травми, тому що вже вони у фізичній безпеці знаходяться, ці діти і ці батьки.
Okay, so I guess you didn't...
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
okay.
I can hear you.
Okay, so she's now in Poland. She works with kids from Ukraine, and is this already an intervention, or she's doing something different? They are not at the stage, at the this position where intervention is needed.
It's a tricky question. Because I mean, they're in Poland, they're still kind of on the border from what I understand, right? Being considered refugees, or being considered, this is where they stay, refugee state? Okay, refugee status, okay. Since the war is still going, I'm gonna assume that we are still in an intervention mode. And it's gonna look a little different because they're not in the war zone, but they have families, I'm sure, they have people that they know, they see what's going on, they are exposed. What you want to do with them is kind of like half and half, okay? What you want to do here is you're gonna give them maybe more room to talk about what's bothering them, to say, I miss something, right? Or I'm very sad, to allow them to say it, but then to move on to doing. When I miss somebody, what do I want to do with it? I miss my parent. Okay, do you want to write them a letter? Do you want to make them a drawing? Do you want to send them a prayer? What do you want to do? Give them something to do. So you're gonna go halfways here, right? Halfsies. So you will allow them to do something about it, but you will give them more room to talk and to say, this is really hard for me. I'm very sad. I'm right there with you. It is very sad. I'm not going to fix them we cannot fix it for them. That's something we need to remember. There's nothing we can do to fix it for them. But what we can do is we can say, be empathic. Empathy goes a long way. It is awful. It really is. What are we going to do about it? How long do you want to sit here? For example, when kids are sad, I have to tell you something that I do all the time, and we're going to get to it, is I create something that is called time capsules, which means we're going to sit here and be sad if you want, but we're going to time it. Okay, we're going to say we have about half an hour right now, and we can feel all of these feelings if you want to. But after that, we need to do something. Okay, what it does is it allows, because if you resist it, it's going to get bigger. Okay, the minute you resist something, it's going to get out of control and bigger. So you're going to say, you look like you're sad right now. You want to be sad, let's sit with it. Let's sit with sadness for a few minutes. Let's sit with it. We have half an hour. We have 20 minutes. Let's do this. And afterwards, do you want to make a drawing? Do you want to create something? Do you want to make a meal that your mom used to make? Okay, that's okay too. It's okay to do that. Kids do a lot better if you talk it instead of, avoid it. It's awful because they're still on like a refugee status, and they still don't know. It's very uncertain what's going to happen with them. So I would keep their functionality at a high level. That's why we still want them to be more of a frontal lobe than just the limbic system. Okay, always think about that when we're doing it. This is what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to get them to be resilient, to feel like they can do it, to feel like they have some kind of control. It's super important. So, okay, does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Right. You're welcome.
Ayelet, there's another question here from Elena in the chat. What do we do with clients who are in Ukraine, but they are kind of off? When they say they aren't worried about war, and instead they want to work on self-esteem, relationships, and other things.
I love these guys. Here's the thing. We cannot do something for someone if they're not asking for help. Not in an intervention state, okay? I mean, if you ask me if I will make an assessment for that kind of a person, I would say that they're avoiding it completely, right? That's what it sounds like. But if someone is not asking for help, right now as an intervention, go for the people that do. If somebody is in denial right now in Ukraine and is talking about, maybe his achievements and his relationships, then that's his story. If they're not asking for help, don't give it. Give it to people that do. There are a lot of them that need it right now. I mean, that's what I would do. I would not go for somebody that, if you feel that they're in denial, say it. Here's what we do in intervention that is different from therapeutic process. In interventions, we don't pussyfoot. We don't walk around. We say it. Interventions are very direct and very assertive. You say it. You say, I am worried that you're in denial. And think about it this way. Maybe this denial is what's keeping this person alive. Maybe this denial is his way of coping. You do not want to burst his bubble. Might not be worth it. Okay? This is not a good time to do a dynamic thing and to say, well, this person, when he's in denial, then you know it's kind of like something that he used to do as defense mechanism when he was a child. That's not the time to do it. There's a war zone. If denial works for him, and this is how he functions, go for that. Leave it. If somebody's asking for help and they're having acute stress, that's where you want to go. Okay? I hope it makes sense. So I want to say, yeah.
What happens if it works for him to be in denial, but it's not working for his wife and 5 children?
Then they will have to ask for help. Again, you cannot touch a situation if you're not aware of what's going on there. I can assume that it's not working for them, and I can also assume that it's working for them great. I don't know. And again, it's not a therapeutic process where I'm, talking and sitting and kind of seeing what's up. If I'm not seeing acute stress in an intervention, I'm not touching it. Some people don't have acute stress reactions. Some people are dealing great with stress. I mean, they don't like it. It's not comfortable, and their stress level is elevated, but they're functioning great. Some people, their green part works amazing. Okay, so it's not everybody. It's only the people that are asking for help. Think about it this way. We are seeing under attacks, under rockets here in Israel, that 90% of the population has a natural healing from acute stress. And not everybody has acute stress. From the people that do, 90%, it goes away on its own. The shaking, the hyperventilation, the stress level, the confusion, all of it kind of goes away on its own. So there's a natural healing that happens and takes place. So when we're talking about psychoeducation, that's something we want to say to our clients or to the people that we help as well. You'll see your body knows how to do that, how to use survival mode and then go back and rest a little bit. Your body knows how to have natural healing. And if it doesn't happen, let's find ways to help it a little bit. But for 90%, 85% of the people, that's what happens. Now, you guys are in a war zone that is not really stopping. So the stress level is always high. So sometimes you can handle it for 10 days or so, but for a month, it's too much. So a lot of the people that you're going to see that are doing okay right now are going to maybe break within a week or two. That's why we're creating the interventions to see that they know how to manage their stress level. Okay? To be able to handle it for longer. High levels of adrenaline, high levels of stress hormones all the time. That's got to be tough. But this is how I speak to people, just like how I said it to you guys. That's how I speak to them. Very straight shooter, explains to them what happens in their body. Are you kidding me? You're under war, under attack for about 2 weeks now, and it's not seem to be over. That has got to be hard. Your body is reacting all the time. What do you want to do about it? I have some ideas, but how do you want to go back to functioning? Okay? You speak like that. This is a way to talk to them as somebody who's creating an intervention. Again, not as a therapist. Avi, you want to say something?
Yeah, we're talking a lot about individual interventions, and we have these incredible, brave professionals from Ukraine online with us. Would it be more effective for them sometimes to do a group intervention? And are you going to address that? Especially the psychoeducation part, where you can give that part over in a general way to many people at once, let's say in a Zoom or something like that.
Absolutely. Right now, yes. Spread the joy, I would say. If you're not getting to a lot of people, I would do that. I will definitely be in a place where I can talk to as many people as possible. So if you guys have the opportunity to do that, do so. Because sometimes all you need is one sentence at the right time that makes it all, you know, like be like, okay, now I know what to do. So if you can approach people, do it. It's very different to have a conversation and an intervention. Those are two different things. Okay, so psychoeducation is one aspect of an intervention. But when we talk about interventions, we're talking about some people that are having acute stress reactions right now. And we're going in there and we're doing something about it. Talking to people in groups and helping them understand the psychoeducation behind the stress levels that they're experiencing and what's happening in their body, that's something that you can do as a preparation for the next one, okay? It's kind of trying to help them maybe mitigate the situation in a way. It's helpful, but those are two, I mean, it's a slightly different thing, but I would do that as well. I also believe that as therapists, if you guys are going to create more interventions, if you're going to create more Zooms, you're going to feel more valuable. If you're going to do that, you will not be feeling helpless. You will feel like you have a role. Your function, remember the continuities, your functional continuity is going to come back. Maybe different, but back. That will save you from being in that place of feeling a victim and feeling helpless. Super important. The more you do, the better you are. Okay? So I'm moving on to the next one. This is super important. I guess, I don't know. I'll show you in a second. People that understand the terms of ASR and ASD, I don't know if you guys are understand it or not, but ASR means acute stress reaction. ASD means acute stress disorder already, okay? Now, these timelines for acute stress disorder reaction, it's usually 48 hours from an event. But when you are in a war zone, none of this means anything, okay? Because you have crisis after crisis, an event after an event. It means nothing. It's an ongoing trauma is what's happening for you guys right now. This is an ongoing event. This is what we're dealing with in Israel for the past 20 years. When we have kids running to the bomb shelters and we're trying to help them, I cannot tell them that the war is over because in 2 months they're going to have rockets over their heads again. Okay? It's a very stressful situation and it's an ongoing trauma. So we treat it as such. So what we say to them, again, like I said before, we are already in a higher stress level. And every time something else happens, that's a crisis. That's a peak. Okay? And sometimes these peaks, we can feel them also in our body. And that's what makes it an acute stress reaction per se. Okay? But it's very different. I'm not going to talk about the clusters of ASD because we don't have time for that. What I am going to talk about is the hyperarousal. Okay, super duper important. Hyperarousal is what you're going to see mostly. Okay, difficulty sleeping, staying asleep, falling asleep, being irritable, having outbursts of anger, can't concentrate, being hypervigilance, exaggerated startle response, which means the door slams and I'm jumping. Okay. I can tell you that over here in Israel, because of the rockets, if the trash can falls, half of the room jumps, okay? Because it constantly feels like our defense mechanism has to work. During times like these, it's supposed to happen. It is normal to be jumping. Normalize it to them so people don't think that they lost their minds. Okay? Normalize it to them. And they say, I don't know what's wrong with me. I can't sit. Every time somebody moves, I have like weird reactions. It's like your defense mechanism is on overdrive. You're not supposed to sleep well at night right now because you're supposed to listen to the sirens. That's okay. Normalize it to them. This is super important for people to understand. Okay? Now, this is my main thing. Knowledge is power. Use psychoeducation often. Explain to them what's happening to them. If you do that, you will see that the stress level is going to go down. Okay? The more I know what's happening to me, the more I can do something about it. And I don't feel like it's spiraling out of control. Now, basic guidelines. This is the important piece. So I know it's late and I know you're tired. Let's run through this one really fast and then I'll let you be. Okay, I promise. So first things first, make sure you're okay before you do anything else. Okay, we talked about it before. I'm not going to keep on talking about it. We are going for empowerment. We are empowering our clients, the people that talk to us. That's what we want to do. We want to make them sure that they can feel that they can do it, elevate their self-efficacy, and regain sense of control. I can find something I can control and go for that. Okay? I cannot control Putin. I cannot control the bombs. I can't. I can control what to eat if I have two choices. Okay? So I'll go for that. I can control if I'm going to the bathroom now or in 5 minutes. I can control if I'm staying next to my brother or next to my sister. I can control if I'm singing a song or if I'm crying. I can control that. Okay? Your job is to make them feel or to help them understand that they can regain a sense of control over something and elevate their self-efficacy. That's what you're doing. Now, we're aiming for them to stay active and have a role. Doesn't matter how old they are. Okay? Sometimes to have a role is to call their neighbor to see that they're doing okay, make sure they're alive. That's a role. That's a job. When you give somebody something to do, okay, they're not helpless. You are trying to keep them mentally active and have a role as much as you can. You're normalizing things for them because this is normal to be hypervigilance right now. This is normal to have a startle response. Gonna, listen and kind of repeat what they're saying. I am going to reframe it. Okay? The whole area is bombed. The whole country is gonna fall. We don't know what we're gonna do. This is awful. People are gonna talk about big stuff. Your job is to reframe it. I can hear you're saying that you're very worried. I can hear your concern. I hear you're scared. And I'm hearing that right now, the forces are moving towards this. Minimize it. Reframe it in a way we can actually tackle it. This is a skill. It's not an easy thing to do. To listen to someone and to reframe what he's saying as you speak. But you guys are all skilled psychotherapists. You can do this. Okay? But that's your job. The other thing is assessment. You want to assess for the symptoms. What is someone having? If you're having physical, mental, emotional, behavioral symptoms, okay? We said before, physical is, if it's on the phone, then ask. Help them go through these symptoms. And sometimes you need to normalize it for them. If my heart is going really, really fast, well, I'm not having a heart attack. I'm having an acute stress reaction. That's normal. Okay? If I'm shaking, okay, then what are you going to do about it? And again, I'm going to explain to them what's happening for them in their bodies so they're not going to be scared of their bodies. When you assess strengths and resources as well. And the biggest challenge that they're facing. This is a resilient approach to intervention, which means we're going for their strengths. We're going for the resources because everybody has strengths. Everybody has resources. We're going for that. Okay? So we're not just assessing what's wrong and what are the symptoms. We're also assessing what strengths we're having. So if there are 2 parents and 3 kids and the kids seem to be able to do a lot of things on their own and they're very independent, that's a strength. And if somebody has a sense of humor, that's a strength. Okay? And if somebody's a fast runner, that's a strength. We are going for everything that they have. And I want them to hear that they have strengths. And I want them to hear that they have resources. Because if they hear it, they hear themselves say it, already their self-confidence goes up. That they can handle this. That they can do this. Okay? Any questions until now? Yeah.
We have a question in the chat.
Yep.
Is it okay to continue working with somebody with depression when the client is in a safe location and he wants to do this, or is it better to wait? And it looks like he's denying this war.
Oh, I love the denial stuff. Is he, so when you're saying he's safe, that means he's not in a war zone at all? Does that mean that? I can tell you two things about this. First, as a therapist, if you're in a war zone, then you're not dealing with people with depression. You take care of you first, okay? If somebody's safe and he's not right now, and you're in a war zone and he's not, then you're not. I believe that this is not smart right now to use your resources towards that, okay? I don't. I think if you're in a war zone, then right now you're dealing with you and you're dealing with the people around you and you're dealing with interventions. You're not dealing with someone that has depression somewhere on the planet, okay? So that's rule number one. I can tell you that I don't deal with my clients from the USA when I'm in Israel and I'm under attack. I don't do it. Even though they're safe and they're fine, I don't think I can handle that or do that very well when I'm under fire, okay? So first things first, take care of you if that's the situation. Second, it's kind of your call. If you're safe and he's safe, then the war is irrelevant. If you think it's denial and you're doing psychotherapy, then figure out within the psychotherapy, why is this person in denial? Okay, but if you're telling me that he's safe and you're feeling safe, then I don't see an issue, then that's not an intervention. But usually if we're feeling denial, something's up. And again, you don't want to take people, you don't want to strip them down from their defense mechanisms. And sometimes denial is a defense mechanism. So it's not always a good idea to strip them down from it, if that makes sense. I hope that answered it. I don't know.
Ayelet, as we're talking about this, I thought of the word triage, right? In the medical eventuality that you have many people that are wounded in some major event. So you pick and choose who you're going to work with first and second. And, who would you work with if you're working, let's say, on the border with all these different people? Are you going to notice that some people are in distress and approach them? You're going to wait for them to come to you? How would you do that?
So I think it depends on what the setting is. I do. A lot of the times, I mean, especially on the border, you have all these organizations, okay? And right now they're kind of doing the triage themselves, right? They're triaging people and then they know who needs help the most. But as an individual, if you're there and you're seeing somebody with acute stress, I would approach. That's me. If I see somebody that I can see that has an acute stress reaction, I will not wait. I will approach it because it is first aid. It's first aid. If somebody was losing a limb, if somebody was hurt physically, then we would go to them. It's the same thing with mental first aid. It really is the same. We want to make sure that we're there. And sometimes people don't know that they need help and they don't know how much help we can offer. But if you're part of an organization, that's fine. And you do however, and you go wherever they send you because they did the triage for you. But if you're just seeing somebody and you think they need help, you go and ask. You go and help, I think. It's an emergency situation again.
And how long do you usually do an intervention for? And I know it depends on the case, but in general, are you sitting for somebody 10 hours or 1 hour, 20 minutes?
No. Roughly, you're looking at 20 to 30 minutes on a long one. Again, it's an intervention. You're not doing a long process. You go, you help, you get them active, you get them functioning, you get their frontal lobe working, you get their physical reactions down, even if not to 100%, but down, functioning, they're good to go. Okay, that's the idea. This is not, we're getting people there. It's first aid. It's an intervention. It is not a therapeutic process. And it's important to know that. People that are on the border, I'm hearing, from teams from the Ukraine that they're seeing between 10 to 13 people per day. So roughly between half an hour to 45 minutes, 20 minutes, depending on the case, because they do other things than just interventions. So that makes sense, okay? And they also have to take care of themselves, which means in order for you guys to do your job, you have to be able to take care of yourselves first. You will not be able to do a good intervention if you are not in a good place. Okay, does that make sense? Did that answer? I hope. All right, I am moving on to so that was the assessment part of it, okay, where we need to really, really watch for all these things. Now, the P for the rapid is again you have to prioritize, and that's the triage, okay, that we were talking about. If you're dealing with kids, don't just create an intervention with kids, go for the parents. Go for the parents. Don't just have an intervention with a kid. You need the parents. First, because if you give them a job, that they feel their self-confidence is growing and they can feel that they have it, so they're already not feeling helpless, that's a win. Okay? And second, it's better off that the parents will take care of their own kids. It really is. For the sake of the family, for the sake of those kids, it's better that it's coming from them than from you. Deal with the parents so they can deal with the kids. Okay? Don't take over for the parents. That's not a good idea, usually, unless the parent is really out of it. Like he has in such an acute stress and he's not functioning. If the parent is functioning, get them to go and to do. That's super important. When it comes to the elderly, depending again, this is where you have to prioritize. This is where you have to assess. Are we looking at somebody that needs a caretaker? Is this somebody that already can take care of themselves and can do things? People with special needs. Pay attention to all these things. And again, you don't have a lot of time sometimes to do it. The biggest part here is your intervention piece. So rapid, right? This is the I, intervention. We have to do physical relief, self-regulation for the body. So if somebody's hyperventilating, if somebody's shaking, we talked about it. If somebody's vomiting, right? You explain to them that this is a stress reaction and you help them go through it. And you explain to them, stress sits in the body. They need to understand that, okay? Now, one of the other things that work really well is when people narrate what's happening for them. So if I don't know what to say to someone and I'm new at this, I can tell them, I can see that you're shaking. I can see that you're hyperventilating. And then I explain to them, it means that your body is this and that. It means that your body is in survival mode right now. And it's normal, that's what happens. And here's what we can do about it. Would you like to walk or would you like to shake your hands? Would you like to dance silly or would you like to, blow into a straw? What would you like to do? But don't ignore the body, go for the body first. You want to reframe in order to be more accurate. If we reframe things right, we narrow it down, we make them smaller. That's what we want. We want it to be smaller. It's not that everybody died. It's that 5 people died. Sorry to say that like that, but that's what it is. They didn't blow up all the buildings in Kiev. They hit 2. Reframe it. Because people tend to talk like this in big, they just make generalizations, and generalizations create stress. Small, okay? It's not like there are 1 million orphans right now in the Ukraine. No, those are not the numbers, okay? You want to, when you reframe, when someone is talking to you, create a reframe where the situation where it's actually more handled. Because from here, we can work. I'll give you an example for kids. I don't do well in school. I am stupid. I don't know anything in school. Okay. Well, do you know literature? Sure. Are you good at sports? Yes. Are you good at geography? Yes. Okay, so what are you not good at? Math. Okay, well, who isn't? Okay. Half of the people that I know are not good in math. But it doesn't mean that you're a really bad student. It means you don't know math. Okay? And that's my example. Reframe, focus it. Because if it's small, we can handle it. Now, give them active, give them a job, help them regain control over something. We said that before. Want to go for cognitive function, anything that has to do with numbers, colors, orientation. I need your help. I really need you for kids that are on the, like, for example, refugee camps and on the borders. I really need you to tell me how to get from here to there. I really need you to go and get something for me from this section. Okay? Tell me how to get here. Tell me how to do that. Orientation is a big deal. They can do that. They can have the cognitive faculties. If they can do that, they are doing better. Okay? Are there any questions as far as that? I know it's a lot of materials and I know everybody's tired.
You told about cluster B and
Sorry?
whether we'll study someday about maybe next week about cluster B. I think you told about it.
About what? I talked about emotional regulation. We're going to talk about it right now.
Okay.
Okay? We're going to talk about emotional regulation right now because it's a really important tool, and we're going to talk about it right now. I just want to make sure that everybody's got it. This position for rapid, right? D, we don't always have it. This position means what do we do next? We had an intervention, stress level went down. We can't always follow through. We can't always have a follow-up. If we can, we should. If we can't, we understand that we only have one shot and we control what we can control. So one shot, we do what we can and we move on. But if it's possible, if people are in refugee camps and we know that they can see someone the next day again, help them do that. Okay? Make sure that someone is following up on them. Super important. I'm going to move on and I'm going to talk about emotional regulation for a second because this is an important tool. Okay? When people are in a place where it's big and it's sad and I can't take it anymore, and I'm sure you've heard all these things, I can't do this. Okay? What do you say to someone that says, I can't do this? You start asking questions. You don't just let them say these general things. You ask them, what is this? What is this? Because this means I can't hear the sirens anymore. This means I can't feel the sadness anymore. This could mean many, many things. Ask questions. Be very accurate. The minute you're accurate and you're helping people to be accurate, you narrow it down. If you narrow it down, you usually get to something that you can handle, that people can stomach, or they can understand that there's one little thing that they can control, or there's one thing that they can control, but everything else is under control. Okay? Emotional regulation is a big deal. The technique for it is to give empathy, constantly reframe, give perspective, and be very, very accurate. So with your permission, I want to ask if somebody can give me an example of a case or something that they came across where people were super saying sentences that you looked at and said, I don't know what to tell them. Right? We said what we're not going to ask. We're not going to say how you're feeling. We're not going to say, tell me about the way you feel. We're not going to do any of that. Okay? But we're also going to ask, we want to be very accurate. And when somebody says, I can't do this, I want to know what this means. So is there anybody in the crowd that is willing to say, listen, somebody called me, asked for help, and I really didn't know what to say. And we can solve it together, like do some kind of a showcase. Super important. I see someone speaking. I'm going to assume it's in Ukraine. No? Yes? Okay. All right. I cannot tell what's going on in the crowd. So can someone help me?
So I can say if you're
Yeah.
willing.
Yes.
Maybe it's not the same what you asked, but a few days ago, like 2 days ago, I had my first client who is a soldier, and he was attacked in the second day of the war. And his question to me was why it's so unfair and why 3 of my friends died. Of course, I don't have an answer for this question, and I'm still having him in my mind, and I'm still thinking what would be the best answer, because he has 2 questions: why the army is so unfair, because I'm not sure who was shooting at me. Maybe it was our own soldiers because of misunderstanding, maybe it was someone else. And the other question is, how can I be more helpful to them when I'm here, when I'm in a safe place? It's a question from him to me.
Oh, how is he going to feel safer?
How can he be more helpful in a safe place? He wanted to be helpful, but he was already in the second day of the war injured. So he feels that he is not doing enough. And that's what I'm seeing of many soldiers. I'm not doing enough, and it's not unfair.
Unfair. So what does that mean when it's unfair? When he says that, what does it mean?
So basically, I think there's few things, but one of them, it's unfair that my friends died and I didn't.
Right. So here's what I suggest. One, you make sure that you ask enough questions to know that you're not assuming what the answer is, but you know what the answer is, right? So you're asking him, when you say unfair, what do you mean? When you say unfair, what does that mean to you, right? And he's going to say, well, I lived and they died. So the subtext is guilt, right? He's feeling guilty. It sounds to me like you're feeling guilty for surviving. That's an awful feeling. That's why I'm going to give him empathy. That's an awful feeling, to feel guilty. Okay? Now, what do you want to do with the fact that you survived? Did you see what I did? I didn't stay there. I don't stay there. I don't get stuck with their feelings because I want him to function. So I'm going to say, what do you want to do with the fact that you survived? Not with your guilt. Because with your guilt, that's therapy. What do you want to do with the fact that you survived? Because he's telling you, that's another thing that I'm hearing, that he wants to do something. He wants to feel like this wasn't for nothing. Right? Perfect. What would you like to do? What are the options? Sounds to me like you want to make it count, the fact that you survived. Good for you. How are we going to do that? What are your options? You'll be surprised. Now, people that have survived something like this, and they have that experience, they can really be helpful. They can be on the phone for people. They can encourage people, right? They can help with the people around them. They can do many things. But he needs to understand that there's something that he needs to do with the fact that he survived. And we're not going to stay just there in that piece where he didn't survive, where he, feels guilty. Because we can get stuck on the guilt. All the times you're thinking, okay, what am I going to tell this guy? I don't know what to tell him. It's an awful thing. I don't know what to tell him. And what I'm saying to you is you want to look at the situation and say, okay, what is the subtext? Subtext is guilt. Okay, guilt over surviving. Okay, now that you survived, what do you want to do? Those are the facts. Okay, it's a very different approach than psychotherapy, because in psychotherapy, we would dive into guilt, right? We would do the opposite. So here, we're looking at the fact that he survived and saying, okay, how are you going to take that into a win? What are you going to do with this? Let's do this. Okay.
Do you also normalize survivor's guilt, like the way you normalized heart beating or the rapid breathing?
I do. I think it's a big deal, but I don't dwell on it. That's the thing. We don't dwell. We say it's an awful thing to feel that like you're feeling guilty over the fact that you survived. It's supposed to be a sweet thing, and now it's a bitter thing, really, right? That's an awful thing. What are you going to do about it? I never leave it there, because in an intervention, you're never going to keep it there. You're always going to keep it moving. Okay? Always keep it moving. Now, when you are doing emotional regulation, when you're helping people, is you're taking these big feelings and you're giving them names, right? You're naming them. You're making it very accurate. And when you can do that, you can work with this. With this, you can work. With something that's very, very big, I can't work with that. I have kids calling in the middle of rocket attacks and they're saying, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. Okay, like that, freaking out. And the parents don't know what to do with them, so they put the kids on the line. And therapists like me are doing interventions in the middle of the night or whatever it is. And you ask them, what's this? You say this, what is this? Some kids will tell me, I can't listen to the sirens anymore. Okay. So what happens when you hear the sirens? My heart wants to explode, right? So for me, that's an in. I can tell them that that's what it means. But I don't know what they're talking about. Sometimes they will tell you, I can't handle the fear anymore. I can't. I'm too scared. I'm thinking, okay, it is really, really scary. Super scary. Okay? Now, fear really protects us. That's why we have it. That's one. And two, 0 to 10, how scared are you? And most kids will tell you 10. 0 to 10, how safe are you? Or how dangerous is it outside? And when you're in a bomb shelter, it's not a 10, it's a 5. So immediately they hear, between 10 to a 5, maybe I'm scared 10, but I'm safe 5, so I'm good, okay? There are many, many techniques, but I need to know what they're talking about. So every time people talk to you in these big emotions, don't fall into them, because as therapists, we're trained to go straight into these emotions and explore them. No, ask what it is that they mean. What are you talking about? And when you get an answer, you will get in it. You will know what to do with it. Okay, and always ask, okay, that's the situation. You give empathy, and then you move on. What are we going to do with this? Okay, always give a job, always give a role, always go for cognitive, always make them feel like they are valuable. If they are, they will survive this thing. I hope that makes sense. Okay. Now, can I be in a position where I can see the group for a second?
Sure, just change it on top, on the corner from the right, the view. Can you see it?
Yeah. Oh,
Just
gallery.
click.
Perfect.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. So I want to ask, because I know it's late, it's 10:45 here. It's about an hour and 15 minutes into this thing. Do you guys want to stop here, digest the stuff that we talked about, look at the video, come back next week? Or do you want to keep on going? If you want to keep on going, put a high five mark or like a hand mark on your screen, so I'll know that I have somebody that I'm still talking to people. It's okay if you can't handle it anymore and you need a break. So most people, it seems to me, like need a break, right? Am I right? How much longer? I don't know. It can go on and on, but I can do another 10 minutes, please. Okay, so it seems to me like people are fried. Am I right? Avi?
They're a bit fried. Okay. Yeah.
That's okay. That's normal. So here's what we're going to do. You guys are going to get the recording. I'm going to show you right now on the screen where that's going to be, if you didn't get it from before. So it is right here, okay? It's going to be on a YouTube channel. It's going to be like a YouTube thing. You can actually go in and watch it again. What I suggest is that we will be in touch, all of us, and we will set one up for next week. Try to use those tools of intervention. Do them all around you with anyone that you can put your hands on. See if you can recognize acute stress. See if you can, if you're doing interventions over the phone, see if you know how to ask the right questions, okay? To assess right. So we're looking for assessment. I want to know what I'm dealing with. I want to do some reflective listening, and then I get even a better idea. I want to do prioritization to know what I'm dealing with. And then I do my intervention, which is really getting people to be active, to feel that they can do things, give them something to think about, out, move their frontal lobe, right? Quiet the limbic system, all of that. And then we really do another assessment just to see where they're at. Okay, that's really the whole thing. But we have more things that we can cover. And I'd rather do that when people are more, sharp and aware and going. So this is where the link is. I hope you guys either screenshot it or take a picture with your phone. And I want to wrap it up. Avi. And where's our host? I can't see you.
Where is Aliona?
Aliona,
Yeah.
I can't see.
I'm here.
Okay. So I just want to say thank you so much for the opportunity. And I want to say that you guys are not alone. And right here to support with anything that you need. Would love to do it again for as long as you need it. And I really hope that you get a chance to practice some of these things and to come back and say, hey, this worked, this didn't. Help us out here and bring some cases, bring something from the field that we can work with. But really, again, thank you for the opportunity. That is not something that we take lightly.
I have one quick question, if I may.
Yeah.
Thank you. Is this for people under fire, or is this for people in different countries as well?
So there were two
interventions.
Yeah, so there were two things here. One was for therapists. This session was for therapists that are actually right now in the Ukraine or on the borders. And the other one, or for people that are doing interventions for people that are under fire. And the first part was for people from all over the world. They're dealing with different kinds of crises. So we had to do two sections for this thing because of the situation in Ukraine.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Right.
So I just
thank you. Yeah,
want to
Aliona.
thank you. I want to thank you for this amazing presentation and the webinar. It was very, you put it in a structure. And I think this is the most what we value now, in a structure and in a short form for us to process it, to understand it. So thank you so much. And we are looking forward to see you again.
Thank you guys. Have a good and quiet night, I hope. And we'll see you next week, I hope. Yes? All right.
This was really great. And a big thank you to Dr. Aliona, who in these circumstances helps to push it out to the great people of Ukraine. And we're with you, and we think you're very brave and we're inspired by you. And it's a very special opportunity that we shared together. Ayelet, you were incredible. Thank you everybody for coming. And we're going to release the recording soon so that you can review all of the material. Thank you everybody, and stay safe.
Have a good night, you guys.
Thank you very, very much.
Дякуємо.
Добраніч.
Thank you very much.
Добраніч.
Добраніч.